Chasing your shadow, wasting the battle, changing the channel. Now all the fuss is just fade without the rush. Remember what it felt like to believe. Remember running wild and living free. Remember when the magic was a mystery. Now all the fuss is just fade without the rush. Did the rainbow fade? We won't see beyond our feet, staring down, afraid to leap. Go! Jump into the water, dance on the thunder, higher and colder, breathing infinity, flying free. Stalling for nothing, starving from judging, talking. But what if all the talk is just truth without the walk? Remember what it felt like to believe. Remember running wild and living free. Remember when the magic was a mystery. Now all the talk is just truth without the walk. Did the rainbow fade? We won't see beyond our feet, staring down, afraid to leap. Hey. Oh. Dive beyond the wildest dream, dare to wake up and believe.
What up, everybody? Welcome back to this week's edition of It Done Just Got Real, Django Unchanged edition. We have a very special episode for you tonight. Tonight, we're gonna go back in time and go some of our favorite moments and points of conversation that are really good for us to remember and hold on to. As always, we want to see you guys interacting in the comment section, asking your questions, voicing your opinions, because at the end of the day, this is a dialogue that we want to educate people with. Also, still share this. We still want to have this conversation shared and being spread out, because all we want to do is educate, edify, and empower everyone as we walk through this moment in culture. So sit back, get comfortable, don't fall asleep, and enjoy this very special episode of It Done Just Got Real, Django Unchanged edition.
I want to throw out a couple thoughts. Have we ever shut the world down until we found a vaccine for racism? This is where we got to talk to the church. We got to talk to everybody. Have we ever shut the world down until we found a vaccine for the racist virus? Have people responded to racism the same way that we've acted when someone gets too close or is shaking hands and hugging? The same person that's yelling, "Don't hug," are you yelling, "Don't shoot"? The same person that's reminding us of social distancing, are you also reminding people that racism is from the pit of hell? No, don't hug, you too close. The same people that's taking pictures because people are 2 feet together, loving each other. Are you taking pictures of racism? The church, everybody, we're so quick to voice our opinions for certain topics on social media, but even now, you can't find some of your Caucasian friends or some of your pastors standing up for injustice. And I know people are like, in Canada, that's an American issue. No, injustice and racism anywhere is a threat to everywhere.
It's not what are you outwardly and functionally doing to be able to identify that person looks like that person looks like that person looks like.
Yeah.
But if you really understand the heart of what's being said and the heart of what's being communicated is, you have to first be intentional about your own repentance, your own changing of the heart and the soul and the spirit on the inside. And what the further statement is saying then is that, but that's not enough.
Right.
Because John the Baptist said, you got to bring fruit of repentance.
Come on.
And that's the intentionality that he's speaking to.
Right.
Yes.
It's not enough to be transformed by the love of God and to let the love of God transform your own bias. Your heart can be changed by the gospel, but you have to let it permeate through your every aspect of your being, and in today's COVID, in your breathing.
Yeah.
You have to breathe this thing.
Yeah.
Okay? And if you breathe it, then what happens is acts come out of that. Behavior becomes modified. We can see in this COVID pandemic.
Come on, man.
Because of breath and breathing, we're modifying our acts. Whereas COVID carries a virus and we breathe that out, so we distance. Whereas our breath carries love and reconciliation and repentance, we bring closeness and we bring intimacy and we bring relationships.
This is what I'm saying. When you oppress people, you make them more skillful. Therefore, you make them more qualified. Therefore, you make them more global. And then you understand that a part of the latter-day revival is going to come through people that look like this.
Let's go. That's good.
And if I may,
You absolutely may.
I don't know if the affirmative action, and this will get like, everyone can blow it up, but it's such a bad thing. People still have to do the work.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you hire the 5 people, however it is, you give the people the scholarship, they still have to go to school.
Absolutely.
They still gotta
People,
earn grades.
giving people opportunity that they should have been given all this time is not such a bad thing.
No.
And I'm not going against anything you're saying. I understand the lens that people see through, but also to challenge that thinking. Like, if you have to hire 5 people in a workplace, or you have to give a certain number of scholarships, or you have to, great, do it.
Yeah.
Why not? There's people all over the world waiting for opportunity, opportunity that has been taken from their parents and taken from their aunts and uncles and taken from whatever it is. Like, awesome if people get an opportunity.
Yeah.
And I think what this ultimately boils down to, I think, listening to what everyone is saying, diversity can't be performative. It has to be transformative.
Come on.
So, yes, the quotas are in place to make sure that a certain number of people have those positions. However, when those people are brought to the table, do they have a voice that you're actually listening to?
Right.
And do you actually give it weight?
Right.
Yeah.
Right? So you can tell when a company may hire folks of color but not listen to folks of color. You can tell. So when Gucci puts out a shoe with a caricature of blackness, Black Twitter, which is a whole nother thing in and of itself, is like, man, we can tell you ain't got no black folks that you listen to, because a black person at that table would have said, now, let me bring some history to this.
Right.
But on top of that, not only is there the potential for that person to not have been at the table, but they probably weren't listened to.
Right.
So they may have been like, hey, real quick, what? Okay, nobody has questions? Great, we'll move on. So your diversity has to be so affecting your organization and who you are that, like Elder John was saying, you have to breathe it.
Yeah.
It has to become a part of who you are. And if you don't allow it to transform your organization, then it's just purely for appearances, and you're missing out on what those people, contexts, cultures, ways of thinking have to bring to the table.
Yeah.
Then you also have to be talking about the way Canada treated Indigenous peoples.
Right.
Like, we can't have this conversation of healing if we don't deal with the first people that were here. If we don't mend that relationship, if we don't bring reconciliation there. I'm not saying that it's perfect. Reconciliation in Canada is not perfect, but it is needed.
Yes.
And there are many, many years, many, many years of women and girls who have been taken, who have been murdered, who have disappeared.
Right.
So for residential schools specifically, again, we talked about this idea earlier of this wasn't that long ago. So the first residential school opened in 1831, but the last one closed in 1996.
Say that one more time.
The first residential school was opened in 1831, but the last one was closed in 1996. For context, I was born in 1995.
Right.
So I was alive when this system was still active. Albeit it looked different. It wasn't as big, it wasn't as active, but the trauma was.
Right.
The reality was. And so again, when we have this ministry of reconciliation, we also have to acknowledge the facts.
Yeah.
And acknowledge the realities that people are facing. Another element to consider in Canadian history when we look at race and ethnicities, we have to look at internment camps, right? So we look at, again, Nazi Germany. Awful, horrific system, should never happen ever again, period. However, during World War II, that same period of time, there were Canadian internment camps that were rounding up German people, Italian people, Japanese people, Polish people, Ukrainian people, out of what? Fear.
Yeah.
And my mom, so her family is all here and they're Chinese, and my uncle, my great uncle, is married to a Japanese woman. And she can tell me stories of her relatives, maybe a generation before her, who were in the internment camps. And I love my Auntie Sheila. She's wonderful. But that's not that far away. And so when she's telling me these stories as a young, Black, Chinese, at all the intersections, I then am put in a position where I have to listen to her story in the same way that Pastor Julie was talking about, creating that space for holding that story and holding that place of healing. Yeah. Right? We can't just walk away from that. The thing about Canada that makes Canada's brand of racism so different and unique is that it was never enacted systemically on a federal level, on the level of the nation. Yeah. It was very much on a province basis, which can make it worse because it's fragmented. Right. Yeah. At least in the United States, there's one bar that we all trying to meet. Yeah. But when you have this fragmentation of injustice, finding a solution for that is hard. Yeah. But again, if we look at, say, cultural narratives for how these countries have been built, America is built upon this idea of being a melting pot, where everybody comes to America and becomes American. Yes. Canada is built upon a cultural identity of being a mosaic. So bring your cultural identity and lay it onto the mosaic of Canada. So, of course, it makes sense that our injustice is gonna function the same way. It makes sense that our racism, our injustice, our fears are all fragmented because that's at the foundation of who we are as a nation. Yeah. Whereas in the United States, because we've been told, lay down your cultural identity and become American, how are you gonna do that? Well, let's create this system that establishes who's American, what that looks like, and what you need to do in order to comply.
In living here and seeing, because people are encouraged to hold on to their cultural identity, there is something that happens which I think is a little bit dangerous, is that there's a lot of segregated communities. Right. And there's certain cities are known for, this is where these people live, and then this place is where only these people live, instead of it being everybody lives everywhere, but you have all different types of people. Absolutely. And so I think that sometimes we have to be really careful with doing the us and them, or 100%. You live there, and we don't have to cross paths. We get in these bubbles of safety with our own people, and it's really easy in Canada, really in Vancouver, because I haven't lived really anywhere else, but in Vancouver specifically, and the lower mainland, is that we have these bubbles and pockets where people can just stay completely confined to their own people.
Absolutely.
As the Church of Canada, we can't take on some of the brands that Canada has. Right. We can't be sorry.
Kingdom.
Being kingdom-minded. We can't be passive-aggressive. We can't be segregated as the church.
100%.
Right? And then look at the world and be like, y'all just loud and crazy, and we just, really, what is our identity? Yeah. I always like to say prophetically that Canada is the David of the world.
Come on.
Yeah, it's overlooked. Yeah, it's small. It's small per capita. Yes, all these. But I believe that if that is so true, then Canada also is called to be a part of taking out the global Goliath.
Yeah.
Come on.
That's so good.
That's so good.
Because when you think about it, people from all over the world are coming here for a chance.
Right.
Exactly.
Folks don't want to go to America. They're afraid right now.
Right.
Yeah.
And people will if that's because America is better than where they are.
Right.
But when you talk about when people are thinking globally of where to go and have a better chance, that place of freedom and that place of that fresh air you was talking about, Canada, we cannot welcome people from the globe, the
Right.
church,
Yeah.
and then it introduced him to just a different form of the racism, prejudice, the fears, the ignorances, and the segregation that they experienced elsewhere.
Right.
N-word. A word will always be connected to its origins. Okay, we could try to tweak it, freak it, leak it, bleep it, whatever you want to do, you can't take it back. You could change it, but let's go back to the origin and let's honor that. You can't just all of a sudden in the middle of history change a dog to be a cat.
Right.
We just gonna call you cat.
Right.
Okay. Language is always subject to context.
Correct.
A word will always be connected to its origins. Etymology, the history of the word. Its Latin origin, originate. Now there's so much, we gotta write this stuff down because there's too much. And I'm gonna call on you guys here, but if you can keep those things up. Read that, Elder John, that second, or we could start with the top line. Read that whole slide. And you can say the word.
Okay.
Okay, but just watch your heart when you say it, okay? Just watch your heart.
Okay.
All right, go ahead.
Etymology, the history of the word. Latin in origin, meaning what we're talking about is the word nigger.
Yeah.
Latin in origin, and originated from the word Niger, I believe is the pronunciation. Niger. In 1619, the first slaves that arrived from Africa were documented as negars. And the end of the 1700s, the word nigger was used pejoratively in common usage.
Next slide, Grace.
So by the mid 1800s, late 1700s, the word N-I-G-G-E-R, this is important, was common everyday language, and it was no more uncommon than calling someone black today. It's difficult to pinpoint when this specifically became a part of African American vernacular. And so in the research, I tried to figure out when did it start. But it actually, you began to see it even happening in the 1800s and in the 1700s, albeit differently from the hip hop movement of the 90s, like 80s and 90s, but it was still common. But it was always used and understood as code for being less than. And so you begin to find it in reprimands for children, saying to your kids, you're being worse than niggers, you're ignorant as a nigger, you misbehave and you'll get taken by that old nigger. So this word is fearful. And so you pass it on to your children, and a child is taught, ooh, I don't want to get taken by, I don't want to be ignorant like, I don't want to be mistreated like. And so this word is wrapped in inferiority, whether we like it or not.
Yeah. And so this word nigger, N-I-G-G-E-R, the racial slur, even within the African American context. Nigga, the bastardized version of nigger, frequently used in hip hop and
African American English vernacular.
Absolutely.
Vernacular English, which is essentially the academic term for what we call ebonics.
I have a friend, a good friend of ours, named Julie, and she actually did her master's thesis on this subject, I believe. And in doing the master's thesis, what she found from an academic standpoint, as Grace mentioned, that there's structure to the language. And people don't understand that English, as we speak it in North America, is the most idiomatic language. Okay? There are rules, but not in this instance. And that in much of Ebonics, it's following the English rules literally
Right.
without accounting for the exceptions. So really, in some ways, it's a language that is being strictly adhered to the rules and the proper construct of language, not adhering from it.
Yeah.
But it has a different reputation because of all of the idioms, all the exceptions. And many times the exceptions are based not on English usage, but on accommodating a different culture, other than African American culture, black culture.
Now the word in Ethiopia, this word, and we saw. Remember one sermon I had came across the word NIGR, and we were just cracking up and laughing.
Yeah.
And, you know what I mean? It was a close call for some of us, and it was just.
Yeah.
You remember that?
I had to say same.
But anyways, and we checked with Sion just for verification, but it is a word that means royalty
Yes.
and
Yeah, so if you're familiar with the great poet Kendrick Lamar, in his To Pimp a Butterfly album, for real though, that dude is a poet and a prophet, and we need to pay attention. But in the end of his song, at the end of To Pimp a Butterfly, he goes into this explanation as to why he uses the N-word. And he specifically cites the word negus, which comes from the Ethiopian context. And so I was doing this research, and I was like, who do I know is Ethiopian? Let me call Sinan. So I was like, hey, if you're willing to give me some information on this, I just got to do a little digging. And so in our conversation, I was told that yes, it is in fact, I'm trying to find the specific information here. Yes. So it is a word that you find in Amharic. Is that how you pronounce it? Yeah. So in Amharic, which is a Semitic language that you find in Ethiopia and Eritrea, which are close together on the continent of Africa, because Africa is not a country. And so you find this, and so the Semitic root means to reign. But what is important to realize is this word is not actually connected to the etymology of the N-word in any capacity.
yeah.
Because the root of the N-word in North America is Latin in origin. So it's more influenced by Spanish culture, French, Italian, like that's where the influence comes from. So the concept of using the word negus, yes, that is in fact a word, and yes, it does mean royalty, but Kendrick was not accurate in saying that the N-word comes from those origins. And so it's important that we educate ourselves and that we're aware of that information. And a part of that is building conversation. So it forced me to reach out to Sion and be like, hey, I have a question. Is this accurate? She's like, yes, but also.
We're going to put that part in our recap next week, that Kendrick, make sure the camera's on her, Kendrick was not accurate, okay? You get a little negative press, help us out over here.
I'll take it.
Get some followers, amen.
I'll take it because I got the research.
Let's
I got
do
the
it.
research.
Got the receipts.
You heard that, Kendrick?
I got the research.
Amen. All right, let's move right along. Let's move right along. Words call forth dignity and destiny. I'm going to say it again. Words call forth dignity and destiny. I really do believe that life and death is in the power of the tongue.
Yes.
And if you can't see, this is what you got to understand is slavery and the slavery that is rooted by the master fear.
Come on.
If you torment, if you control, enslave, you can just take your hands off. And the spirit of slavery now controls the person. You don't need to do it. You just you just create cages called certain laws, boundaries that play the game. It's like every game has rules. Right. And if people don't play within the lines, right, they get fined. They go to jail. They get... Right? And what? You're not playing our system by the rules, so you're going to get locked up. Right? And so what you got to understand, man, is grace. And it just comes back to, man, what does the Bible say? Life and death is in the power of the tongue. So cool, you could tweak it. You could take the N word and make it something dope and put swag on it. But I can't swag out the B word when I'm talking to my wife. Little fine little B-U.
That would be dangerous for your health.
You can't just tweak a word and just no. But look, this is what the slave mentality does. It will take a word instead of being loosed from the word, and it will try and tweak it and make themselves think we're in charge when we're still not.
Right. Right.
The power is in the word. That's why you can be a downright sinner, but if you get what God says about you, you can be sick, you can be defeated, but if you get the word of what God says about you, I'm an overcomer, I'm more than a conqueror, eventually you'll start what? Believing it.
Exactly.
And if you keep on saying nigga, if you keep on saying nigger, even if you make it sound like royalty or it's got swag to it, guess what you're going to act like? What they say a nigga act like.
Exactly.
Cover in America, Nigger was and will always be a void of dignity because it was built on hatred and slavery.
Right. That's it.
I don't care how swagged out you make it.
Right.
Why do we want to continue to say a word and speak it over people, a word that confines us? That's why around mighty man and woman of God, mighty woman of God, mighty man of God.
Yeah.
How you doing, Prince? How you doing, King? How you doing, my queen? Y'all too deep over there. Well, deep. I think Nigger is deep.
Right.
It's gonna keep digging you deep.
Right.
Or why do we want to use this platform as a space to keep echoing the news? Right? We want to educate. We want to inform, but we also want to talk about the redemptive qualities of this moment in time. Right? We also want to equip the church and be a voice for the church and help people understand the church's role in this time. Our greatest mission is to the oppressed. So for us to avoid as the church and be like, let's get over it. No, this is what Jesus came for. Right. So if you are any type of church, you are figuring out a way. Your mission and vision is switching for this moment. Right? If you needed something to do, forget feeding the homeless right now. There's a people that need your voice, your platform, your resources right now, and if you think it's an American issue, you got another thing coming. It's a Canadian issue too, especially being a global city. Guess what you're doing? You're bringing in a bunch of oppressed people.
Right.
So are you also going to help them to freedom, or you just want them to work for you and make your city great?
Right.
It's still a part of the system. So let's lock up this generation and then have them be in parentless homes. And we're going to lock them up too. And I don't mind being in jail because my dad was, my uncle was. So why wouldn't I be a part of a gang?
Right.
I need a family.
Right.
And then the church, what's your job? To be the gang.
Right.
And be soul winners, not just small group builders.
Right. Come on.
Not just building systems to be great businesses and have a place for people to come. That's great. But when people come and make your church their church home, it's your job to make soldiers.
Come on.
That are called to go in the street skillfully and strategically. How has it been for you being in Canada, being from the Caribbean islands? How has it been adjusting? And you have an interracial, you have an interracial relationship. You're married to a Caucasian woman and your kids. And how has this moment affected you? Because Ball brought you here.
Yes, sir.
So how has your quest, your journey been up to this point? How has it been for being a black man in this country?
I realized the difference between looks of curiosity and disdain when I was in Manitoba. Mm-hmm. You would go to certain areas or McDonald's, especially as a college student, munchies at 2 o'clock in the morning. But you notice looks of disdain versus, there's a different person here, right? Yeah. So versus here in BC, I feel like things are so much more diverse. Mm-hmm. And I've always had thick skin, so most of those things don't really affect me. Yeah. Unless you touch me or say something really direct to me, then things change. But in BC, I'd never really felt. Yeah. Everything was indirect. Yeah. Very under the surface.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of indirect.
Very, very indirect. So for me, things are still indirect.
Yeah.
You know, even in the workplace.
Yeah.
Like, even in the workplace. So that's my experience. I tend to just not to focus on that, but try to still love.
Yeah.
This situation in whole has really been tough for me because I have to remind myself, I'm like, my wife is white.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want to build up this emotion in me where I'm like, man, like, you know, but my wife is like next to me. She's white.
Yeah.
And she loves me for who I am.
Absolutely.
Like, loves me, loves my community, loves my family, loves the African in me.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, so it's like, okay, you know, there are bad apples.
Yeah.
You understand that. We know that.
Yeah.
How can I still show love?
Yeah.
How being black in Canada has differed from being black in China?
Oh yeah, like man, especially when you can play ball, it's a lot easier. People offer you a lot of things.
Yeah.
Go to different places. They're just super nice.
Yeah.
Super nice.
Yeah.
Here, whew, tough. I'm telling you, like, say for instance, like a street ball game. So if I get invited to go play in a street ball game in China, packed. Over 2,000 people out on the outdoor court. Autographs. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Driver picking you up. I had a driver pick me up right outside the airport.
Yeah.
Had my water, everything, just like,
Yeah,
wow.
you see how niggas feel, like, you know
You
what I'm
know,
saying?
yeah.
Got that water, king me.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Absolutely.
You know what I mean? And just
Honor.
like they really honor you. And if they know you're good at something, and that's different, they'll love you more. They just, I don't know, they just love street basketball, basketball in general. Here's a different ball game, man. It's like you're fighting. You play pickup ball somewhere, and they know me here, but it's just not the same.
Yeah.
I don't get the same love.
Yeah.
I don't get the same love.
Yeah.
Maybe if I was Steve Nash, maybe.
Right. Right.
That's how I feel. If I was like a
Absolutely.
Steve Nash, I'll probably get more because it's like, it's just different, right? But out there, they love the black culture, right? But you got to be good at something.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
You got to be good at something out there. That's how I feel.
Yeah.
People are coming out now,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Which is great.
Yeah.
The stuff that's going on, the riots, it's going to be riots because you're not listening.
Yeah.
For sure.
Right.
What do you want us to do?
Right.
Yeah.
Sit
Right.
down?
Right.
No, we had enough.
Yeah.
And that was the last straw.
Yeah.
That man, he didn't even mean to sacrifice his life, but it's basically like he sacrificed his life
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
to make change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're just fed up. But people are coming out and saying, what could we do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Caucasian people, what could we do?
Yeah.
Yes, now it's out there. We've been trying to tell you guys for a very long time. For a very long time.
Yeah.
So what can you do? The system, the beast,
Yeah.
you guys are saying all this stuff, but you need to do something about the system.
Absolutely.
You need to put more black people, more colored people in the government
Yeah.
for it to change.
Come on, man.
Absolutely.
Say that.
Intentional.
For it to change.
Yeah.
If you're gonna say we're gonna change, and don't have colored people in your system, you're not changing anything.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
the younger generation needs to see that on TV.
Absolutely.
That there's a Chinese man,
Yeah.
there's a black man, there's an Indian man
Yeah.
out there.
Yeah.
Oh man, so that's gonna give them hope.
Yeah.
Like for me growing up, I don't see any black people in the government. I didn't want to be a lawyer, doctor. I want to be like Michael Jordan.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah.
Say that.
That's why I played basketball.
Yeah.
Because I want to be like Michael Jordan. I want to be like Allen Iverson.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I was like, oh man, I'm pretty good at this.
Yeah.
I could probably be on their level. I could probably make the NBA.
Yeah.
I'm not good at anything else.
Yeah.
They said I had to learn this way. I would never go to the university.
Yeah.
They put me on the side. They said I couldn't talk my language, which is Trinidadian, which is English.
Yeah.
And they're telling me I can't speak Trinidadian at home because Joey has bad English. Trinidadian is English, just with a slang.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So don't try to fool me.
Yes.
Yeah. 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 Keep it together. Keep it together. He gonna get him.
I'm just coming. Start building up.
Go
over the
there,
years.
go there, man. That's just, it done just got real.
Come on, man.
Absolutely.
You
See
know what I
that.
mean? So that's how I feel. Like, and I have no hate towards
Yeah.
anybody.
Yeah.
I've done nothing to anyone.
Yeah.
But because being black is just that's
Yeah.
just how it is. It's just everywhere I go. I like even going to the store.
Yeah.
I have to think secondly.
Yeah.
If I put my hood on, like,
Yeah.
man, should I really put my hood on? Because they're gonna think I'm a.
You gotta think.
You gotta think.
Yeah.
My boy, I told my boy that. He's like, really? Man, he put his hood on. He's like, man, I don't have to even think about that, man. I just put my hood on anyways, Joey. But now I understand what you're saying.
Yeah. Yeah.
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
So I'm happy what's going on right now because it gives me an opportunity to use my platform to actually finally speak again what I said 20 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I built this basketball platform. I got a lot of followers. This is a great time because I think God wants me to do something like
Absolutely.
Yes,
Come on,
sir.
man.
You better.
Come on, man.
you
this. So
better
when you
not.
hit me up,
Absolutely.
it was the right time because
Yeah.
we were supposed to hook up a long
Long
time
time
ago.
ago.
But it never
Absolutely.
happened.
Absolutely.
But it happened at the right time.
Absolutely.
So I just want to thank you. I want to thank all you guys for
Yeah.
giving me the opportunity just to share my experiences. Really appreciate that.
Yeah, my name is Tion Gibbs. I'm just a dude from Vancouver, just trying to like make art and like have a bit of influence on like the culture and the scene here. So I'm really blessed to be here. Thank y'all for inviting me. This is cool. So I wrote this piece, and yeah, hopefully I'll rock with it. Yeah. My mind told me my answers were hidden knowledge. My pastor told me his vision would reach a prophet. I thought I could have them both from what I learned in college. And now I question why I'm counting debt and commas. Damn. They told me I should trust the process. But how I trust the process, all I see is losses. How I kill the demons, all they wear is crosses. Like how they killing niggas, but let's believe in progress. Damn. Cause Philando look just like my brother. Yeah. And Sandra look just like my mother. They told me not to live with color, but Sandra looked just like my mother. Damn, 'cause ain't shit changed. Kill another nigga with a chain, but we are not the same. Tell me how you living through the rain. Tell me how you living through the pain. All the things that
they say are stuck in my head. All the things that they say,
all the things
that they say are stuck in my head. All the things that they say.
Spell it out. All the things.
Right? And so we found ourselves in the studio, sitting together, writing a song together. And of course, there was like boundaries that for me, just because of the role that I play in people's lives, but because I know this man's heart, he also was very respectful. So we got a single coming out in 2 weeks together. Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, if you had a problem with it, you should turn off the stuff you watch on Netflix. You should make sure you're pure in all your little secret thoughts you have, right? But throughout the word, I see the Lord standing and walking with people all the time. So, Tion, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing great, man.
I don't wish I had your hair. I just wish I had hair.
My hair kind of crazy right now, man. Kind of wilding right now.
Hey, what has this moment meant to you and your writing and your purpose? What is this moment in time from COVID to not a new racism issue, but just this moment in time over the last few months? What has come up for you? What has it meant for you and your purpose and your drive and your thought process?
I think the things that, like that song I did, I actually wrote that a year ago. And it's just like, in the last 10 days, it's probably had more people connecting with it and messaging it and sharing it than ever, just because I think it hits different right now. People understand it a bit more because everyone's having the conversation.
Your experience in church, how
How was that for you? We've talked about it a little bit, but how was your experience in church in some nutshell from getting there to serving to when you hit that intersection where you saw whatever?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't born and raised in a Christian family. You know, I came to find Christ when I was like 16, through like a youth retreat. I moved from Botswana to Canada, and I was serving in a church in 2010 until 2016, 4 days a week. I was like really invested, and you know, when I started being, I went through a lot. You know, I was in church. I was engaged to someone that fell apart. That relationship came to an end, and I had a lot of issues that I had to seek counseling for, and I was doing that, and it was great. And when I started talking about things like that and feelings that I had, and being a little bit more honest with my experiences in my music, yeah, we kind of had to. It was almost like we had to go separate ways. And yeah, I had a lot of people really shun me, really push me, and really talk down to me. Yeah, it was an interesting time because it's like, yo, I gave you guys 6 years of my life. It's kind of how I felt to my local church, you know.
Yeah.
And I gave you 6 years of my life. Like I was doing hours like a staff member, like I was paid staff, and I just did it because I wanted to like be a part of it. And so that hurt. I'm not gonna lie, that hurt. And when I moved away. And I came to Vancouver. Yeah, I had a lot of apprehension and kind of like I felt like I was kind of burned a little bit. And you know the thing is I'm aware. I'm not like naive to the fact that like when you're going against the grain, you are gonna always get pushback.
Yeah.
But I have always been taught that like, you can walk together with someone and you can give them that pushback, but let them also know that you're there for them, you know?
Come on, man.
And it's interesting because in the last like 2 weeks, a lot of those people who pushed me away are like reaching out to me and trying to champion me based off of one song. And it's just really strange because it just makes me feel like where were you the last 4 years?
Yeah.
So that's kind of like when I look back at my relationship with my local church, I will say like is when I look to like God, I don't have like a negative outlook towards God or anything like that.
Yeah.
I can understand human relationship is always going to be different to that relationship.
Yeah.
So I have that like awareness, you know. But yeah, that's kind of where it's at.
Now that's good. Well, you for sure, Love Quest gonna be walking with you. Love Quest, man. We questing with you, brother. How was that for you during that Popeye season of your life?
Man, well, again, like there is this. It was this really crazy growth period for me because I did it completely out of innocence. Like, it wasn't like I was like, I'm a black man, I'm gonna go sing about chicken. Like, it was like, you know what I mean? Like, I've received every side of the comments online and all those sorts of things, and it's cool. Like, I let people have, it's online. I can't change their opinion. But for those that sit and listen, I'm like, man, I was just pumped because we finally got an American restaurant in Canada because Tim Hortons ain't it. And it was just like, finally had this, you know, it was something better than just KFC, whatever. And it was just pure innocence. And for people that really know me, they know that I take videos all the time. Like, I go to the zoo and pretend I'm David Attenborough or whatever. And that's just what I do. And it was interesting for me that this is all of a sudden the one that hit. And honestly, at the time in my life when that first hit, if I'm being brutally honest, in my wrestle for identity, I was cool being someone's house Negro for that season. Simply because I had tried being me. And in this trying to mature, but this frustration of, man, I got a gift. You might find a lot of people of color, and this is where you look at the culture, the amount of people that are willing to compromise for the sake of being in the big house, it's crazy. And so when it even came up again, because Popeyes themselves hit me up and they said, we saw the video, we love what you did, and we're willing to give you this little number. And I was like, if you gonna come, I'm gonna take it. Yeah. And so I had to make sure with myself, I was like, you gotta have wisdom in it too. Because I looked at what they were willing to give me, but in that time of the season, there was some growing up where I'm like, well, this ain't just gonna be some little thing anymore. If you're gonna try and, if you want to post this, you want to use this in your commercials, you're gonna treat me like an employee. You're gonna treat me like an artist. You're gonna treat me like someone who knows who they are. Yeah. And so that negotiation with them, the fact that it was even a negotiation versus them just being like, great job, was a lot of growth for me. But looking back on it, man, like, if I'm being fully honest, there's a part of me that's like, I wish I never did it. Yeah. I wish I never did it. Yeah. Because that's how culture robs people of their innocence. Like, I'm a grown man that was just innocently doing something for fun, and it just got taken. It went so far. And in the reality of it, it was like I didn't have nobody until I met you that was literally able to look me in the face and be like, do you know how they're portraying you? Yeah. And that is, for a lot of folks of color, man, you need that in your life.
Yeah, absolutely. What does people you talk to and sit down with and socialize with, if they were gonna even have a chance to go to church, what does the church need to do outside of any compromise?
I feel like don't be afraid of it, I think a lot of people who are outside of the church, they have a fear of going to church because they fear judgment. And I think that judgment would sit in a place of not knowing, and not knowing how to deal with it, and not knowing how to talk about it, not knowing how to address it, as opposed to coming right at it. Yeah. I think my experience, my last church that I was at, we had Eric Garner's passing away and that kind of stuff, and we never talked about it. It's the same thing I feel like with pop culture. There's a lot of things happen in pop culture that are phenomenons that the church shouldn't shy away from. That's what I think. Yeah. Yeah. I think a big thing is that it's public too. As an artist, anything that I put out into the world, it's public. So I feel like a lot of churches feel like they have to address that and push back on it. And I mean, I believe in accountability. I do think that's like a very important thing. And I believe you have to have that level of realness. And it's a tough line to walk, 100%. But I think if you're willing to go against the grain a little bit and not think of it so binary, I think the church can be effective in being a leader in culture.
Kind of echoing those things, you see a lot of churches with, where the majority demographic is not people of color. And shouts out to all the pastors and ministers who are trying to get involved in the conversation, who are trying to take a minute to actually step back and really look at it. But ultimately, you gotta search your heart. Are you putting people of color on stage because it draws other people of color, or because you see what's on their life? Because you see the anointing they carry, because you see it's not just their talent, or they're good because of the way I like the way they sing that. No, it's stop looking for token people of color. Just start looking for souls who carry the burden that Jesus had. Yeah. And you're gonna see transformation.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is It Done Just Got Real. So we can be as real as we need to be and should be for transformation. What's been the hardest thing about leading your congregation in this Black Lives Matter moment, or whatever the case may be? It's a very confusing time for a lot of believers. What's been some of your challenges in leading your people through this, or even for you personally?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest challenges has been you know, kind of like becoming aware of our own ignorance to it.
Yeah.
Not a lot of people sometimes go through racism, and depending on the demographics that we are like leading. So, for example, our demographic is primarily Asian. We got a little bit of Spanish, and a few black people started coming about like a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
And just being completely ignorant, which, you know, was something that we had to address with the church. You know, we apologize for that.
Yeah.
We haven't been in situations where we got to experience that a lot, and so sometimes we're silent, and other people are going, "Why are you being so silent about that?
Yeah.
Why aren't you speaking about it?" Right. And then other people are too scared or too afraid to address it and speak it. So it's like there's like this crazy tension that happens. So kind of discerning how to deal with that tension was a huge challenge for us. It was a new challenge for us that we had never gone through.
Yeah.
But, you know, thank God that, you know, we have conversations like the ones that we're having right now where we get to embrace diversity, where we get to unite and hear different perspectives, because I do believe that as a church, we do need to speak up. And unity, as you've been preaching loud lately, has been a huge beneficial factor for us.
Yeah.
Shame. Shame, right? At the end of the day, not just shame for us as ones who are looking from the outside in, but really dealing with the shame within too. I mean, the reality is people are feeling shame for being of other color.
Yeah.
Helping people to deal with that is not an easy thing. But as a minority pastor, and I know I'm the model minority, so to speak, or that's what they've coined us to be, right? We, you know, it's easy for us to just go, man, like that's not us, but man, and you know, we can show sympathy. And we know this, right? When showing sympathy is like throwing them a life jacket, man, and then turning the channel. That's what we do with World Vision commercials, man, all the time. Show a whole bunch of sympathy. Man, that sucks that kids are suffering. Switch. Oh man, LeBron James is sick. But the reality is, this empathetic culture just really needs to rise up, and it has to start within the church because Christ has been the model. So dealing with my own shame. I mean, it's easy for me to sit here and blame everyone else. Say, hey, we're not doing anything. The church needs to rise up. The reality is, I'm not even standing up for my people. Come on. So when you talk about performance, that's what we're good at doing, church, right? Let's be honest. Absolutely. Let's be freaking honest about this. Every freaking church is good at performing. That's at the end of the day. But you put your money where your mouth is. And so for me, I had to go, Holy Spirit, gut check. And it's not even asking him. He's already doing it. We just got to listen.
What did you learn about yourself in this time?
Yeah, I think one of the craziest things has been, you know, as a Spanish person, as a Spanish man. I'm Spanish, by the way. I don't look Spanish, but
you look Spanish, brother.
I heard Persian, man. I heard Persian. I'm like, what? Sometimes I get Italian too, but as a Spanish man, as a Spanish leader, you know, sometimes we're portrayed as, you know, super loud or really expressive.
Welcome.
Hey, I know. I'm on your boat. And sometimes because we express ourselves in a very passionate way, I'm a very passionate speaker.
Yeah.
I know that you can't tell right now, but when I get into preaching mode, it gets pretty expressive.
Yeah.
And sometimes that expression or that passion gets interpreted as arrogant or prideful or loud. Do you have any Spanish people in the house here? No. Kind of. Danny kind of looks. Fuentes is pretty Spanish.
Right.
Fuentes, Danny Fuentes, are you Spanish? You have some Spanish in you?
I'm Filipino.
You're Filipino.
Which got some Spanish.
Let's not go. You got a quarter Spanish in there, as I was saying. Sorry.
Back to your loudness.
Back to the loudness. Sometimes loudness or your form of expression could be interpreted in a different way just because sometimes we come from a lack of understanding. Kind of like what I was saying earlier before. Our ignorance of everything that's been happening with the whole BLM movement, you know, makes you draw conclusions that sometimes could be a little bit erroneous. And I find it interesting that sometimes we form conclusions of people or groups of people without getting to know who they are. That's right. Without getting to investigate where they're coming from, without getting to hear their story or the painful moments they've gone through. Yeah. And so that's happened a little bit to me. You know, we have a term called spicy at Crave Church where when it gets heated up, we go, hey, that was spicy, right? Yeah. But, you know, in a Spanish church, that's something very, very typical, normal. And then if you go to a different type of demographic, that spiciness can sometimes it can kind of throw people off, kind of like volume.
Absolutely.
So I've noticed that, at Crave Church, we're very there's a DNA in it that has a little bit of that Spanish feel, that loudness, that expression, that affection. And then some people sometimes come from different demographics and you're like, whoa, the hugs? That's a little bit weird.
Yeah.
Or can you turn the music down a little bit? It's kind of like Good Father's not sounding so good right now. And they want to bring out the acoustic guitar and it gets a little bit difficult because there's a clash of cultures. There's a clash of a background. One of the things I'm learning is to accept something or someone that's different without drawing conclusions before hearing where they're coming from.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And I think that what's extremely sad to me is that one of the places that we experience this the most is actually the church.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I was listening to, your guest singer that came in, Tion, like, he's saying, I've been hurt by the church, and the reason that sometimes we get hurt by the church is because sometimes the people of Christ that are supposed to embody agape love or agape love are the last ones to catch that revelation, and they'll tell you how we catch. I think that we catch that revelation of agape love when someone hurts our skin. And I think that this is where the church needs to learn to mature. Stop hearing what other people are saying. Stop just judging the book by its cover and go have a conversation. Stop taking actions that instead of embodying and manifesting the love of Christ, which was acceptance, we're missing this.
Really quickly, what's been some of your hardest? What's been some of the hardest things for you in this season when it comes to Black Lives Matter? This big uproar specifically to the Black Lives Matter movement. You personally, but also some of the frustrations you may have dealt with in ministry. Because again, the context that you're in, you probably one of a handful of people your skin tone, and you're in ministry. I'm not sure how many people of your skin, your complexion that's on staff, right?
You said it right,
So from there, you might be one of the go-to people to educate people, and that could be very draining. How has this time been for you, and for you in ministry?
This the word you just said there, draining, was a huge one. Man. For a lot of people, it's been so draining. Because I think I remember the first moment, I was soaking a lot of all that's going on with the Black Lives Matter, and I just remember one day just falling down and breaking down and crying because I pictured the little black boys and girls out there who are suffering in their identity because of the color of their skin. Because I was that boy, it was in kindergarten. I was in kindergarten for the first time. I had to realize that not everybody treated each other the same, and that was the beginning of where I started to struggle with my identity as a black person. When I was told that I was ugly for being black, and I grew up with that, and so I struggled to want to prove myself. And so that I suffered with that for years. And it wasn't until I came out of high school. And because I wanted popularity, I wanted to belong. I wanted to fit in. And for most of my context, where I was living and where I was growing up in, it was majority white context. And for my mom always taught us, like, love every shade, love every color. That's just what I was used to. But obviously, I didn't receive that all the time. So I had a lot of insecurity. And so I wanted to always prove myself. That meant compromising my values. That meant taking the slander and the jokes. But inside, I was dying because I just wanted to fit in. For me, in my context, it's interesting because the church that I go to, I love my church.
Absolutely.
I love my leadership with all my heart. And they know that. And they would be okay with me saying that it didn't go the way I hoped it would when all of this came to light. It took me at first breaking down to respond and say, what are we doing here? But I'm so thankful that I have pastors who are so loving and they care for us that they said, okay, tell us, teach us, what do we do?
Yeah.
Teach us, what do we do? And that was the beginning of a beautiful conversation. Because it was shocking that so often, even in the church, that nobody is willing to step into those hard conversations.
Yeah.
And yet, the church is supposed to be the one who's at the forefront of those conversations. You say,
Absolutely.
we should be the ones doing it.
Absolutely.
And yes, it's going to be uncomfortable.
Absolutely.
Yes, it's going to make you, but Jesus wasn't about people's comfort.
Absolutely.
And it's so funny. We love to preach the word. We love to get in the Bible. We love to be in the pulpits. And we love to worship and all that. And I'm thinking, how many of you do really understand the Jesus that we serve?
Yeah.
He would preach to a crowd and say, you know, if you don't deny brother, sister, brother, for my sake, you know, like he preached some uncomfortable things. He had some uncomfortable conversations because he wanted the truth to prevail.
Yeah.
And so where I was struggling with is I wasn't seeing enough of that,
Yeah.
even in my own context. But now we're starting to move towards that.
Yeah.
And I'm really excited that I have a team, a leadership team that is willing to say, okay, let's move in the right direction.
Yeah.
Let's have these hard conversations. And I think what frustrates me is how many even well-intended Christians will come and say, you know, oh, I'm sorry, but I can't stand that. Oh, yeah, I'm so sorry for what you're going through, but, you know, that rioting is so bad, or, you know, MLK wouldn't have done that. And I said, who? I wish sometimes the things I want to say, I said, who? Why? And this is what I've been telling people who have been getting it right, is to seek to stop and listen.
Yeah.
Sit down with somebody and just listen.
And listen.
Hear their heart.
And listen.
Hear the heart and going on. Of course, I agree with you that maybe hurting and trashing things ain't, but do you understand the pain?
Yeah. Yeah.
You can't even understand a little bit of the pain that this person is going through and why they would even get to that point.
Yeah. Yeah.
And MLK said that to his brothers and sisters.
Yeah. Yeah.
Trying to encourage them in another way. He wasn't speaking to white people. He wasn't speaking to other people. He was speaking to say, hey, we got a better way here. But he understood the pain of those who were even doing rioting and harsh things.
Absolutely.
And so I feel like for a lot of this season, it's been exhausting for people who want to go into debates and saying, oh, this is bad and this is this. And I said, have you called one brother? Have you called somebody of color?
Yeah.
And just said, I'm standing with you. I love you.
Yeah.
How can I pray for you?
Yeah.
It's crazy. I can count on my fingers how many phone calls I've had of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it just shocks me. And in the church,
Yeah. Yeah.
it just shocks me.
And I'm speaking to everybody in this room as well as in this camera. Knowing a black person, being friends with a black person, does not free you from seeking understanding about the black struggle, right? Because forget people that aren't around us, that don't call us. It's easier for them. But there's also people within the church that may see us every day that haven't said, hey, let's have some coffee. I really want to understand.
Yeah.
Right? Because we're in relationship, don't mean it's just like if you get married. Hopefully you courted. What are you doing? You're finding out about that person. Wow, you had abuse. You had this. You understand. See, and the relationship then goes deeper.
Yes.
It isn't. See, because that can be ignorance. I see the color of your skin and automatically feel sorry for you. That's ignorance too. The objective is not to feel sorry for me.
Come on.
The objective is to make sure, because quite frankly, I didn't go through what MLK did. I didn't go through some of the, like, I've been pulled over, but I didn't get beat.
Come on.
Right? I got pulled over, but I didn't get shot. So the stuff that what if the narrative wasn't police brutality, it was just racism?
Okay. You're hitting it.
Because you don't have to kill a black person to be racist.
No, there you go.
So if there was no police brutality, what about the stuff you can't catch on camera?
Yes.
That's in man's soul.
That's right.
Right? So automatically we just think, because it's like it's all about police brutality, but it goes deeper than that. We're talking about the sickness that's in somebody's soul.
Yeah.
If something is taught, you also got to unteach it. you also got to teach something to replace it. He say, renew your mind. He says, put off the old man, put on the new. You can't just let media teach you. If you have the blessing to have people in your life, man, learn their stories.
Thank you everyone for once again joining us on this very special edition of Django Unchanged. If you want to partner with us, all of our giving information will be posted on our Instagram for you to partner with us, because we believe that Love Quest is good ground worth sowing seed into. Join us again on Sunday on our live stream experience at 9, 11, and 5. We can't wait to see you guys there. In the meantime, get your love fixed, man.